to meet you.
Baby, we found love, baby.
Magic, madness,
Baby, I'm thinking about you. Hello and welcome back one more week to Educala. Today, we bring you one of the most claimed and liked podcasts for you all. Here you have your three favorite girls with your discussion about the program as always. Hope you like it as much as we do.
Hi girls, how long without seeing you?
Yeah, what's going on?
well, missing the holidays.
Yeah, me also.
What have you done? Yeah.
Well, I went to somewhere a few days, and you too?
I stay at home.
Me also. Oof.
Well, have you seen the last episode?
Which one?
I think that she's talking about the one that speaks about leadership in groups, don't you?
Yes, that's the one.
I like it so much.
We could say that groups are the combination of people, animals, or things that are together or have common characteristics.
But talking about group people,
Do you mean group of the people?
yes, that's what I was talking about.
Ah, okay.
Well, group active people blur their own responsibilities and diminish their habitual inhibition, so the results could be really surprising.
But also, groups could generate a situation of excitement in the individual, of being in something bigger than in oneself.
Don't forget that a group makes you identify as a group traceable, but at the same time it makes you anonymity.
What is that of anonymity?
Philip Zimbardo, for example, experiments clothes where he dressed up different women with large black coats and white hoods. Other women were uncapped, but all of them were leading to give electric charges to people. As a result, the psychologist saw who the covered woman give more electric charges than uncovered woman.
But Tom Posmes and Russell Spears said that anonymity makes someone to be less conscious of him and more conscious about the group existence.
Okay. But group decisions are also very important.
Yeah, of course they are.
Here, in a group, there are discussions to take a decisions. There are many different opinions, and people can listen other ideas and changes their own ideas.
In a group, the initial inclination of members are enhanced. This leads us to talk about group polarization.
What is that about group polarization? Sorry about questioning everything, but I don't listen it too much.
Don't worry.
We're here to answer and respond our doubts, so it's okay. Well, group polarization means that discussion in a group usually reinforces the average inclination of its members.
Another thing to take into account are the symptoms of a group of thinking.
Yeah, in this process, the group carries out four decisions. There are symptoms of the thinking that develops.
Yeah, and here we can identify 8 different groups.
Yes, the first one are when members overestimate the strength and rights of the group.
Yes, here they say that the illusion of invulnerability is when all groups develop an optimism that brings them to the danger warnings.
But also, undisputed beliefs about the morality of the group is when the members of the group assume that the group has a certain and inherent morality.
The second one is when members adopt closed-mindedness.
Yeah, here they speak about rationalization. That is when groups downplay challenges by collectively suggesting their decision.
Another topic they take into account is the stereotype view of the opponent, where the members of the group consider that their enemies are either too evil to negotiate with them or too weak and unintelligent to defend themselves against the planned initiative.
Yeah, you have explained it perfectly.
Well, more or less. More or less. Okay, so the third one, no, sorry, the third
Yes, the
group,
third one.
yeah, oh yes, the third, I lost the count of it. The third one is when the group has pressure towards homogeneity.
Yeah, for example, when the members of the group reprimand those who raise doubts about the group plan, sometimes not even with argument but with personal arguments.
This is known as pressure to be satisfied.
Also, in self-censorship, since disagreements are uncomfortable and groups usually have a consensus, the disagreeing members shut up or downplay their misgivings.
We can also find the guardians of the mind, where some members protect the group from information that would question the effectiveness of morality of the decisions.
Did you know that symptoms of thinking in group can produce an absence of search and discussion of contrary information?
No, I didn't have a clue.
Well, Ben Newell and David Lagnado believe that the symptoms of group thinking may have also contributed to situations such as the war in Iraq. Both Saddam Hussein and George Bush were surrounded by advisors with ideas similar to yours, intimidating opposition voices to shut up.
Wow. Now, changing the conversation a bit, what do you think about leadership?
Well, it is an interesting and central topic, both in academic and professional world. This topic has been too relevant, but we could say that the leader is the person who attracts people in a natural and spontaneous way. The leader is the one whom others wish to follow.
When talking about leadership, we are talking about interpersonal relationship between different levels of power, didn't it?
Yes. Sorry, you are okay. Leadership marks an interpersonal relationship between a person who influences, that usually is the leader, and another or other people who are influenced, who usually are the followers or the subordinates of this co-leader.
Right. We could say that the kind of people that carry out a position of leadership is determined by their objectives, circumstances, and the composition of special groups.
Well, also, according to Machiavelli, being a leader consists in the maintenance of the reliable flow of information on those issues to make a decision and maintain sufficient respect from the decision to made.
On the other hand, Weber distinguished three bases of power on which the authority of the leader would rest.
Yeah, the original basis that is based on the belief of the legality of the normative patterns, and on the right to give order to those who possess a legal or legitimate authority.
Then we have traditional bases that rest on the belief of established on the innovability of the traditions and the legitimacy of the statute, which is known as inherited authority.
And finally, but not least, charismatic base, which is based on the heroism or exemplary and exceptional characters of a particular person and on the normative patterns or others that reveals or decrease, like the charismatic authority.
Yes. And girls, I would like to know what do you think about Duke and Van Fleet's classification?
Well, they make so many classifications.
Traits approach was one of them. Here, it emphasized personal attributes and competencies behavioral approach, which emphasize behavior and studies the different styles.
Then behavioral approach, which emphasizes behavior and studies the different styles.
Another one is situational approach, which studies the variables that affect the effectiveness of the conduct of the leader.
And the fourth one was the interactive approach. Here, they focuses on the relationship between leader and followers, and they analyze the process of influence and power.
The fifth one is charismatic and transformational approach, which analyzes the necessary changes in the conduct of the leader to revitalize his mandates.
And the last one are other approaches in which we will highlight particular aspects or other contributions and methods.
After talking about the principal theoretical approaches, I would like to talk a little bit deeper into the traits approach because it impressed me.
The same happens to me. According to this theory, some people, by nature or inheritance, possess certain characteristics that others do not possess.
Also, defined features such as physical or psychological characteristics of individuals that are studied through interviewers, questionnaires, and psychological tests, and by observation of the conduct of the individual.
It considers that the leaders tend to be more tall, attractive, smarter, and more confident, healthier, psychologically dominant, extroverted, and more sensitive than others.
However, these features define different leadership styles, and only in certain situations and under certain conditions.
Exactly. And what about the behavioral approach?
I listen that this approach explores leadership in terms of what leaders do. These behaviors are not innate qualities that can be learned.
You have defined it really well. Another fact that is the basic concern is to distinguish the most effective styles. Also, the productivity of the members of the group and welcoming efficiency.
And what does style have to do with this theory?
Well, style means the usual conduct of the individual when he directs the activities of a group towards shared objectives.
Yes, this approach puts regarding leaders with the processes of the group, but the influence process is unilaterally focused on the leader.
Now I remember it. The notion of style suggests that leaders always behave the same way with all the members of the group.
Another fact that caught my attention is the democratic and autocratic conduct. About that, Lewin and Lippitt carried out studies classics in 1938 and continued by Lewin, Lippitt, and White in 1939. And in these studies, they identified three styles: the autocratic, the democratic, and laissez-faire.
Yes, but only the first two are active forms, since the third is synonymous with no leadership, because it's not influencing the behavior of subordinates.
You're right. Democratic behavior manifests itself in the use of parliamentary procedures and decision making by majority. On the other hand, autocratic conduct is described as the use of resources of strength and power.
Furthermore, in all studies, short and long-term satisfactions appears strongly associated with democratic supervision.
I think that the democratically governed groups employ more time on their jobs, but their products were of better quality and originality, and still working in the absence of the leader.
I agree with you, and I would like to add that autocratic groups' unit leader was increased frequency of acts classified as dependent leader, had a lower yield of work when such as a lone leader encountered greater hostility and aggression.
And finally, the laissez-faire was less organized and less efficient and satisfactory for the children.
Yes, in that, the groups that were under democratic leadership were more cohesive and tend to produce greater interpersonal satisfaction.
Do you remember what they talk about after rewards?
Of course, then they talk about a very important fact of leadership in groups, that is, the participative and directive conduct.
Yes, this perspective asks the extent to which the superior, the subordinates, or both are involved when making a decision.
Also, the participatory conduct of the leader favors the acceptance of the decision and agreement with the solution.
Girls, I remember that in 1975, Bass and others devised an instrument to measure 5 dimensions: the direction, negotiation, consultation, participation, and delegation.
Oh, I have forgotten that it is emphasized that direction, negotiation, and participation are the most frequent forms that use most of the leaders. On the other hand, subordinates often perceive consultative behavior.
And what is the consideration dimension?
The consideration dimension represents the degree in which the leader takes into account the welfare of his followers.
It exists also the dimension of initiation of structure, which is related to the degree to which the leader facilitates or defines its own role and interaction of the group, aimed at obtaining the goal.
In fact, there are correlations between both factors. The majority of the living classified as high in considerations were like to get high scores on initiation of structure also.
Something that I didn't really understand was the relationship-oriented and task-oriented behavior. Can you explain it to me, please?
It will be a pleasure.
Of course.
Thanks.
First, the research carried out by members of the University of Michigan found two dimensions of the conduct of the leader, distinguishing between the focus on people and the focus on production.
Exactly. The leaders, people-centered, emphasize relationship, and those who are production-centric emphasize the proper fulfillment of the task of the group.
The results of the investigation show that the leaders focus on people get better results than the tasks in the productivity and satisfaction oriented.
It can be concluded the leader best evaluated by their superiors and peers, that produce more satisfaction in subordinates and whose working group pay more is probably a person-oriented relationship and the task at the same time.
Thank you, girls. Now I really understand it.
Don't worry.
Now, as a reward, I can explain you what is socio-emotional leadership and leadership of task.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, so in 1949, Bales considered as a group leadership. We could talk about functional role, those rules that a person in the group should be if what is intended is that the group can successfully overcome problems that arise within and outside the group.
Wow.
Also, as a group function, emerging roles differentiated leadership, group performing the task, and emotional group maintenance, and that's all.
Thank you, Judith.
Now, I would like to talk about the situational approach. In that, the theory of Weiss and Slater in 1955 can be considered situational, since it means that the appearance of the leader is due to the need to group role playing and not personal qualities.
However, you can study various theories that emphasize more contingent aspects of the relationship between leadership style and situational variables, with a view to the efficiency of the conduct of the leader.
What about the model of contingency of Fiedler?
Fiedler was the first to propose contingency leadership relationship.
He considered that the agent is the leader and their influence depends on situational elements.
Effective leadership occurs as a result of the comparability between the style and the degree of favorability or control of situation.
Yes, do you remember what are the three factors that determine the favorability?
The first one is the relationship between leader and members.
The second one is the structure of the task, and the third one is the position of the leader's power.
Good job, girls. I was testing you.
Moreover, the normative model of participation in decision-making aims to determine the extent in which subordinates must participate in decision-making.
Right. An appropriate level of participation will motivate subordinates to accept the decision taking, and this will help the resolution of the problem.
Besides, this model is normative, is governed by a set of rules that serves to protect the quality and acceptance of the decision.
Yeah, according to Brom and Jetron, leaders adapt their style to different situations.
On the other hand, in the interactive approach, Hollander understands leadership as the result of the interaction and transaction between the actors, leaders and followers, and it is a process of mutual influence by which they offer and obtain benefit.
Effectively, the role of the leader will change as the objectives, expectations, or tasks change. Also, leaders are responsible for giving a structure to the group, directing the task as well as contributing to the satisfaction of the members.
In turn, the followers influence the leader by granting him his leadership position and legitimacy to exercise his role, as well as certain freedom to innovate and the ability to influence them.
And to finish this process, the followers provide the leader more information about their performance.
Within this cycle of mutual influence, leaders and followers believe and share a common atmosphere of the group. Mutual trust, fairness, information.
Perfect, girls. Do you know what the acronym BDLs mean?
I think that you get confused. It would be VDL?
Yes.
Well, I have listened about it, but I don't remember it at all. And you, Judith?
I think I don't have idea.
It refers to the vertical dyad linkage, which was proposed by Graham, who deals specifically with the possible difference that in the leader-followers transaction establishes the leader with some of his followers.
Now I remember it. The letters get confused me because you said V.
Yes, it is too complicated.
Oh no, sorry. Okay, I think that I now know what BDL means. The central theme is the process of developing the different exchange relationships between the leader and his followers.
Yes, the social structure studied is the leader-subordinated dyad, in which the first social exchange leaders and followers seek the case of these social didactic structures.
Once these keys are discovered, they are used to predict in advance the nature of the social structure and the product of that structure. In this way, the leader selects those followers that he can trust and that are compatible with him.
So, in conclusion, the VDL model is based on the idea that the leaders make differences among their subordinates and develops exchange with selected followers within the group who act more in accordance with the expectations, no?
Exactly.
Now, girls, talking about the transformational leadership, do you remember of what it consists?
It isn't the one that involves the influence of a leader on subordinates, but the effect of influence is to give power to subordinates, the empowered, who became leader of agents of change.
Yes, and is based on influence, idealized, inspirational motivation, which they provide attractive challenges, intellectual stimulation, which stimulates innovation and creativity, and finally, the individualized consideration, which are the roles of the mentor, the coach.
But there were another type of leadership, wasn't it? I almost have the name, but I don't seem to remember it.
Oh, yes, you mean the charismatic leadership?
Yes, that one.
Well, that is the one which the followers trust and respect the leader as a superhuman hero or a spiritual figure.
Also, the charismatic leaders must have a strong need for power, high self-confidence, and strong convictions.
You know, girls, although we have this type of leaderships, we also have different approaches.
I know, but right now I can remember the names.
I'm sure that one was the theory of operant conditioning of leadership. This theory focuses on the interaction between a leader and follower.
Yeah, and it parts from the fact that behavior is determined by the contingencies of reinforcement of the environment, and it is understood that the leaders are an important source of contingency and administration of rewards.
Well, we know that the task of the leader is to indicate the stimulus and the correct answer, and in reward for the correct answer.
Well, we have the humanistic approach first. Do you know what it consists of?
Now that you say the name, I remember. This one brings together work by theoreticians of the so-called movement of human relations in the organization.
This approach emphasizes the influence of the quality of interpersonal relations in the effectiveness of the leadership.
Leadership function is to modify the organization in order to provide freedom to individuals so that they can get motivated to develop their potential to meet their own needs, contributing at the same time the attainment of the objectives organizational.
Then we have the psychoanalytic theory of leadership. In this one, Freud, among others, addressed the problem of leadership.
These authors see the leader as the father figure, as a source of love and fear, as an emotional outlet for aggression and frustration of followers.
Also, the I get confused with this word. Psychoanalysts had a marked influence of the attempt to understand to the leader's political and parental authority relations.
And finally, we have the comprehensive model of leadership.
Well, seeing the complex which is to formulate a theory of comprehensive and integral of the phenomenon of leadership, to seriously reach a proper understanding, we must pay attention to various factors.
Yes, Jekyll considered the points most important to find the convergence between the different approaches. First, the influence and motivation, then the maintenance of efficient relationship, and finally, the decision making.
Apart from Jekyll, Bass also described 5 factors which are the individual consideration, intellectual stimulation, inspiration, direction by contingency, and management by exception.
And do you know that there are some influential aspects in the formation and exercise of leadership?
Oh, of course. There are numerous factors of variables that influence both the birth and the formation or maintenance of leader, his personality, his relationship with the group, etc.
The 4 basic aspects are the personality, the emergence of the role of the leader, the criteria of the effectiveness of the leader, and the leadership determined by contingent factors.
Finally, and not least, it is essential to distinguish between the leadership of the domain or headquarters and the capacity-based influence.
Although educators exert influence on students, they are better seen as bosses than as leaders.
So, girls, in conclusion, what can we say of all of this?
Well, I think that we can say that now we can summarize that the person who performs leadership has to have some aspects.
Yeah, and these aspects are the social leadership and the task leadership, didn't it?
Yeah, and therefore the leader must be a member of the group, to be part of it, to subscribe to its rules, and to understand the common meanings.
In addition, it must excel in characteristics above the average of the members. It is not usually found a member who meets both conditions, a great man according to Bales.
Well, what I know for sure is that leadership is important from the earlier years of our life. In kids, it's easy to see how is the main leader of each group, but how is the leader established?
Well, the leader of a group of kids needs to have a combination of different personal characteristics, work in groups, know how to manage with everyone, be an example for the rest, and also be communicative.
Although this characteristic seems to be in adults, in teen learn is also important for kids. They need a leader, and maybe our sons have the capacity to be a leader.
We can prevent them for starting having a leadership attitude because even if it would have positive and negative consequences in future, a kid with a leader attitude will be more mature and it will give them independence also.
Well, I read something about the tips of being a good leader in kids, and I'm sure I knows it. It was about making them read or something like that.
Oh, yes. Read is always good for every aspect they need to have and for developing each of its capacities.
Well, in the article that I read, they also said that something important when we have a leader children in our family is encourage him to be a good leader. Positivism is one of the main parts of our work.
Also, we need to help them at the time of taking decisions. Helping them at the homework time is a good idea. We can guide them in organization by they will have to do it by their own, using their imagination and their creativity.
Their initiative is also important. The parents that use patterns for children in which they don't stimulate their authority can generate on them many feelings of frustration that could damage their self-esteem.
We also have to concern our kid that if he or she is a leader, it will have consequences with the rest.
They have to be the best example. Anybody wants a reckless as a leader or someone that doesn't have good relation with people neither.
Making group activities such as games or sport activities, musical ones, will be a perfect reinforcement for them. They will learn to collaborate and to have team spirit.
We need to be good patterns for them. How we educate them will be crucial, avoiding overprotection, the control of every movement they make, and creating a dependence relation with him or her will cause a negative effect on him.
Or her.
Or yeah, or her.
So, emotional intelligence is a key in this world. A healthy emotional intelligence will develop social skills such as empathy, support, and respect.
Having a healthy mind will help them to have a better relationship with the rest of the group.
Giving confidence to them will create a growing climate in which they will have more trust in themselves.
Parents sometimes have the fault of a negative leadership in kids. When the responsible of a child start giving them responsibilities in excess, it's also bad for them.
The beginning of this type of negative behavior is not fault of the children itself, but is generally related with a lack of affective bond.
Yes, school is also important in this aspect. Teachers need to know who is the leader and if he or she is a good one.
We can't allow having a kid with negative attitude being a leader of a group, because in this case, the rest of the children could be also affected by his or her bad behavior.
For example, a group of 6 kids has our pupil. David has a very bad attitude in class, and his partners follow their actions. If he starts messing up with the rest of the class, disturbing them from the lesson, the most probable thing is that the rest of his group will start doing the same.
Facing this type of situation is not easy. We can do many things, but the best one is to consent that the rest didn't have to follow this type of leader, and that having a bad behavior will provoke bad results on their final qualifications.
We don't have to continue allowing this type of attitude in the leader. We need to change their actions, and the best way is talking with him or her and knowing the main problems he will have if he continues like that.
Well, have to say that not being the leader of a group is also a problematic situation for kids. Most of the kids would like to be the leaders of their respective groups, and this will generate a bad climate, full of disputes, reprimands, even fights between them.
Sadly, I face this situation a lot in school, and it's really sad because you see the kids sad just because of a thing like that.
Although they have a leader, there are some cases where a good leader appears, and that usually is more problematic one. The rest give them that place for avoid problems.
If our children are in a group that doesn't correspond to them and it starts giving them problems, we also have to teach children how to say no. We have to know that negative leaders will encourage the rest of the group to do bad things for them.
If someone don't want to do something, they have to know that they just have to say no. And if their scare is being rejected, understand that they can have more friends and better ones.
This is a hard and difficult job as a parent but also as a teacher because It's not easy to say to a kid that his friends are not good friends and that he or she can find better ones that will be better for him or her.
Yeah, but it is important that we tell them that because they will think about it, and if we don't tell them, it will have bad consequences and repercussions in the adolescence.
Yeah, I totally agree with both of you. Sometimes we have to do things that make us feel bad in order to help the future of our kids and even their presents, because having bad friends or friends like that are not good.
Exactly, but do you know why the rest of the people of the group normally follows a leader?
Well, they say that it's because they emphasize with their ideals, their actions, and because they do something that causes them good vibes, such as children to play with them, share toys, and making interesting things of their age.
Yeah, for example, since they are 7 years old, what they look for is to have a reward from their friends. The leader will be the one who more rewards gives to the rest of the group.
Other situation is when a kid is expelled from the group because for a little kid that can be a traumatic experience.
Oh yes, the typical you don't play. Is it a bad situation? Because being rejected of a group is traumatic for them because they think that they don't deserve for anything.
It's really sad that even kids have to face these kind of situations when they should be carefree and playing all the time, having fun and being happy.
Yeah, it's really sad. And what is worse is that this situation happens more time than we know. And I can't believe how sometimes kids can be that cruel with others.
Well, maybe they really don't know what they are doing with their actions, but sometimes that's not the case.
Exactly. Well, normally shy kids have a low level of self-esteem and are the ones that normally are rejected of the groups and have more difficulties for making friends.
Well, in schools, the teachers, what we have to do is involve them making group activities and games with them for making the rest interact with this type of kids.
But all these situations have like a age stage, no? Because as we grow, we focus on other things, and we know what things are good and which ones are bad.
Well, according to the article that I told you girls about, they say that from 10 on they start to have another type of mentality and this type of things stop happening, although bullying is present in every stage. And I think that they also said something about the bullying in the TV, but I'm not sure.
In conclusion, teachers and parents need to have a good attitude in relation with the leadership in children and need to create good and negative leaders. And changing the topic, what do you know about groups in educational context?
Well, about it, we can find three different moments in the development of a group dynamics that are group initiation, group production, and group evaluation.
Yes, the group initiation is the step that takes place when the people from a group that was not previously established. It is like the group integration.
Also, in group production, everyone has to give their best, taking advantage from their capacities.
In the last one, group evaluation, the group should evaluate their final results in order to make future progress.
What about the phases of a group development?
According to words, there are different steps in order to create a social group.
Right. The first one is the discontent period of which members of the group do not have that sense of belonging and their needs are not satisfied.
The second one is the precipitating event in which, if you are not feeling good with your group, maybe you want to change to a new one. This can lead to confrontations and tensions with the group.
The third one is the identification with the group, that is the beginning of the new group.
The fourth one is the group productivity, and which, in order to be productive, the tasks have to be well distributed according to each one's capacities.
Wow, how much do we know? I think there are two more steps missing.
Me too. I think that the steps that are missing are the fifth step, which is individualization, that consists on receiving according to what you have done, and each one has objectives, so during this phase, these objectives are more personal.
And the last one is the group drop, in which the members of the group don't trust the others and start to divide themselves.
Perfect, girls. Another important fact is the group structure.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't listening. Yes, it is a very important part because in a group, everybody makes a different task, and according to it, the structure will be one way or another.
Also, we can differentiate between the formal and informal structure.
You're right. The formal structure is predefined depending on the group.
On the other hand, the informal structure that comes from the search of satisfaction of your needs.
And what do you think, Judith?
Well, now what about changing the topic?
Okay.
What about the groups according to their leadership? Do you know something about this?
Well, if I am not wrong, there are three different groups: the autocratic, the democratic, and the last one, which is anarchic. Yes.
Yeah. Well, in the autocratic one, there are very structured groups, also very limited, and the leader is authoritarian.
In the democratic one are more flexible, everyone contributes, and the leader has been selected by the other members, like by votes.
And finally, in the anarchic groups, there is no leader. The members have a lot of liberty, and it is focused on the satisfaction of needs.
Oh, party.
And what about the group dynamics?
About that, we can distinguish three moments. The first one is the group initiation, the second one the group productions, and the third one is the group evaluation.
And we don't have to forget the conditions for making a group dynamic.
Oh, yes, before starting a new activity, we have to determine in advance some aspects.
Yeah, like how long the sessions are going to be, the members of the group, which contents are going to be used.
And also the experience of the person who coordinates everything and the psychosocial context in which we are located.
Talking about the coordination, what about the role of this person in a group?
Well, this person has to create a climate in which everyone feels comfortable and safe. They have to establish objectives, motivate the people.
Yeah. Also, they have to promote the participation and coordinate all activities.
Also, there are some conflicts within the group, and we have to know how they can be solved.
First of all, we have to know that the extent and size of the problem. The second step is knowing which causes have originated the problem.
And then we have to put in common all the different solutions available, and finally, after selecting the best option, we will have to put it into practice.
And to end with this topic, we have to know that the group techniques in education are these that are different techniques that we can find in educational context related with teamwork.
Now, girls, I have to come home.
Me too. I have the kids off.
Me too, I have a doctor appointment with my mom and I have to go with her.
Okay, so
I hope see you next week.
yes, with the next TV program.
Oh yes.
So goodbye, girls. See you on Monday, I think so, or Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Okay. Bye, bye, girls.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.
We hope you have liked this new edition of Educalag. These three girls have explained really well some of the most interesting topics of the social psychology that are the leadership in groups and groups in educational context. The next week, they will talk about the last two topics. The end is coming. See you next week. Bye.
Everybody wanna steal my girl. Everybody wants to taste just like